following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Dudagnon returned from licking his wounds with a win at Watkins Glen, but as last season showed, unpredictability is the name of the game in the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. A car that can bite you in a split second and a track schedule that would challenge even the most talented of drivers ensures that everyone must stay on their toes. Will momentum continue in favor of the Frenchman? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Lotus 49 World Cup, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel in the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Sean Ambrose. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sean, this series has raced at Daytona's road course before, but not this 2007 version. Maybe help our audience understand why that's so significant.
Joe, it's significant because this is a gnarly, old, nasty piece of pavement on this track. This is before the big repave. And, well, it does present challenges, especially on this Lotus 49, bouncing that suspension all over the place. This car will be unstable here. It'll be very unstable under braking. Heading into turn 1 when it's at full song after coming out of NASCAR 4 through the tri-oval. Watch these cars get stacked up in turn 1 today around this track. Through the horseshoe, the international horseshoes, you will find some adventure there, but it's all about the fun on the high banks of Daytona International Speedway until you hit that bus stop on the backstretch and then back to NASCAR 3 through 4 for that final trip across the start finish line. But the best way to get an idea of what it's like to ride around Daytona International Speedway is to hop on board for another GSRC Lap Guide.
All right, we've got Stefan Schlacker in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Daytona. Through the tri-oval, you've got one of the most difficult braking zones right away. The transition off the banking along with the curved entry makes turn 1 a nightmare to keep the car planted. And of course, then you've got to get smoothly onto the power without spinning the wheels as you come off of it as well. Weave it through the chicane of 2 and then duck it off to the left to give yourself a wide entry into the international horseshoe. Just like the first turn, drivers need a knowledge of the car to get the most out of applying the throttle. Anytime you're turning and accelerating in this car, it's gonna be tricky. You've got a short brake up to the kink, but it definitely won't be flat out in this car. And because you're left with no time to switch sides and get the car settled, a lot of drivers opt to just straight line it into the western horseshoe here, despite being a somewhat shallower entry. It's pretty much the same story as the other horseshoe, easing back onto the power. Now we come up to turn 6, which is one of the most critical turns of the track. Because it brings you back onto the oval portion, it means you'll have a long flat out section of track. A bad corner exit will be painful. Now, this is the old Daytona, so you'll see the car jostle around everywhere over the bumps. In fact, that's why you see so much damage on the nose of the car. It's unavoidable. As you come off of the banking of NASCAR 2, be wary of the way the car wants to slide up into the outside wall. And obviously, you're going to have a huge head of steam by now, so the long braking distances of the Lotus mean you'll be slamming the binders very, very early for the bus stop. Just like turn 6, this is another one that makes a big difference on your lap time. Avoid a cut course penalty, find the throttle, and let her rip. Just like before, the bumps are going to make this extra hairy, and you always need to keep in mind the exit of 4. But as you come back to the tri-oval, you've now hopefully finished a lap around Daytona. You see a lap around the old 2007 version here at Daytona. That should give you at least a little bit of an idea of the bumps. We'll get even more as this race goes on with our coverage. Now, this championship, of course, is completely refreshed, and with one round in, well, we see Michel Dudagnon back up at the top. But it is not Trangrade behind him in second after the first round. It is Mick Claridge back where we're used to seeing him. We'll see if maybe he returns for another championship under his belt after multiple already. Dave Price with a nice third place at last round at Watkins Glen. Ove is in the top 5, at least there in fourth. And then you see Billy Bob Wright with a nice top 5 here to kick things off. But Sean, we also have the amateur championship, the F2 championship. What are we looking at for those?
Well, what we're looking at is Alex Cameron, the UK driver right now, 14 points to the good. And there's our old friend Hideki Koivitso nipping at his heels, just 3 points behind. Of course, one round in the books here. And as we look at these F2 driver standings, David Rossi, another UK driver, they're up in third. Andrew Eng, gentleman we have become familiar with over the years, and Anthony O'Brother is there in fifth after making the round one race last week. Hope to see him back this week, Joe.
I think we have a new nickname there for Anthony. Poor Anthony. I think it's Obrota.
It's Obrota, right? I'm sorry. You know what? There was a Lionheart IndyCar driver. There was actually a Lionheart IndyCar driver a couple years ago. His name was O'Brother, actually, is what we call him, but Obrota. I will get that right. Thank you, sir.
All right, we won't dwell on it, but let's take a look at the Constructors' Championship real quick before we get to qualifying here. Of course, that being the Nations Championship in this series. France naturally leads the way. Claridge and Price both contributing points early on there for the UK to put them into second. Trangrade then gets bumped up to third, US to fourth, and that brings Finland into the Constructors' Championship top five because of that. Sean, we also have race details here for today's race. What's this one going to involve?
Hop of the car, run around Daytona. Basically, that's it for 20 laps. Round 2 of 12. There are 2 dropped weeks this season. Those really won't come into play for a while here, as we've only just getting to round 2 right now. The setup, it's an open setup, so the drivers have worked hard this week in preparing these cars for maximum speed here on the Daytona road course. Now, the points pay out back to 25th place. Good news is everybody's going to get points today because I think we have just about 25 drivers. So that's your race details here for the Grand Prix Legends. But Joe, like I said, really today it's a little mastery around here is what it's going to take, and maybe a little bit of patience. You don't want to get too greedy too early here. 20 laps doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot to keep this car stable over the length of a race.
Absolutely. One thing that is reliable, though, is the iRacing Esports Network. If you enjoy this action here, make sure and subscribe, and you can catch all the various world championships that they cover, as well as lots of other action. Riding on board with Rob Olenek, who's actually got himself onto the front row, but that is as far as he is going to go because qualifying is now over. So let's go through our starting grid with Michel Dudignon. No surprise there, up on the pole. Olenek, having himself found some speed, gets into second. Angelica Pawlowski will be starting in third. Then it is Dave Price in P4 with Marco Kika starting fifth. Billy Bob Wright starts on the third row in sixth with Gary Teal in seventh and Richard Morin starting eighth. Then it's Paul Foster going to be starting P9 and Bruce Nelson in 10th. Sean?
All right, Joe, and then we're going to go down to 11th, and it's going to be Daniel Sandro starting there on the inside of row 6 with Scott Velez. Row 7 going to be occupied by Andrew Eng and David Rossi. Row 8, Stefan Schlacker, GSRC's own, and Kenneth Bately. Row 9, Simon Shaw and Hideki Koivitso with not a great qualifying effort, but we'll see what he can do. It's Daytona. Anything could happen. Row 10, Francisco Javier Gutierrez and Mick Claridge. Not getting a time in there today, and maybe that's part of Mick's grand plan to dominate this race, but we'll catch the rest here real quick. Philippe Uquart there in row 11 with Robert Reynolds. In row 12, going to be David Cohen and Chris Behan. Or I'm sorry, Chris Bean. Chris Bean, that's right. I've called his name before, Joe. I got it. Brota and Bean. There we go.
There we go.
All right.
That sounds like a television series, Brota and Bean.
Or so, a law firm, maybe.
Yeah, how about that? All right. So as you can tell, unusually, I think because maybe they have it starting on the tri-oval here, they have elected to do a rolling pace lap behind the pace car here. So not a standing start as is traditional with these cars. Considering I've seen even MX-5s have trouble getting off the line, they're on the banked tri-oval from a standing start. This is probably for the best with these cars. They have a lot of power even from first gear. As you can see, they're working their way now around the infield course. Now, that shouldn't provide much change. It is only the oval portion that really has the bumpy nature to it compared to the newer paved version here at Daytona. But one worry that I have about that bumpy pavement, Sean, is that these cars, I have to imagine they maybe have to give each other some leeway with the bumps and can't race relatively close on that on the banking.
Well, that's part of the problem, Joe. This car likes to skate, as I like to say. It you feel like you've picked up a patch of ice at times with the Lotus 49. The grip levels aren't always very high. Obviously, this is a low downforce car without any kind of real ground effects or any kind of wing to keep it planted to the track. Add in a few bumps, Joe, and that makes it very tricky. The car on straight line speed, it's not stable. It's a trick to handle, and yeah, racing side by side, that can get even trickier. And one small mistake can not just cost you, but your opponent and everybody behind you. Because let's face it, when you're traveling at 200 plus miles an hour, there's just not a whole lot of time to react, is there?
Yeah, that's for sure. You can see them now up on the banking. As let's take a glance at the weather while we're at it. Of course, it is about 1 in the afternoon virtual standard time, and thankfully track not terribly hot right now. Only 87 degrees on the circuit, 71 degree air temperature, and a little bit humid, which is kind of natural here being in Florida. Even in the winter, it can get a little bit sticky sometimes. Now they're coming up to the bus stop, which is probably going to be the part that tests them just as much, other than, of course, that difficult turn 1 coming down off the banking. Very narrow through here. Probably going to want to take it single file. Boy, woe betide anybody who does try to take it too wide through there, Sean.
Yeah, good luck. Well, I talked about how unstable the car really feels at straight line speed. Under braking into that bus stop, Joe, it's really hellish, and that's the problem. The braking, you got to hit that braking zone just right. You overshoot it, obviously, you've toasted it, and you're in for a slowdown penalty, or you hit that apex too late, and the car is off track and in the grass, or even worse, in the wall or into somebody else.
All right, off of the banking of 4 now. The roof pace car about to unleash this field of Lotus 49s. Michel Dudignon is going to lead them to the line. Let's see how they do down into turn 1. There goes the pace car. Green flag is out. Michel Dudignon is on it. Wow, horrible start for Olenek. He's already going to lose second place. Pawlowski looking down to the inside into turn 1. Not quite as brave on the braking, though, as they weave their way around that pit exit. Even though they're side by side, it is relatively calm into this first corner, and it looks like they're good for now.
Snelson got checked up on the start, Joe, and it brought Scott Velez having to slam on his brakes. It caused quite a bit of stack up here in midfield.
Still side by side between Dave Price and Pawlowski, and finally Angelica is going to slot back. Oh, as it looks like Marco Keegan is going to send one up the inside into the Western Horseshoe. Very close moments there as they fight for 4th position. Nobody willing to give up. Poor Angelica can't catch a break as we're almost halfway through this first lap. Just finally squeezes Kika out and solidifies that P4.
Mick Claridge already picking up several spots here at the back of the pack, Joe. He's finding himself moving through the field already. He's closing in on Stefan Schlacker, trying to figure out a move here around the number 8.
As he's got a good run down the backstretch, pokes his nose in, but just not quite close enough. Oh, as we already got a car looking at a cut course. Visto as well. Excuse me,
Andrew
Ang.
Yep, he lost it under braking, Joe, going into the bus stop.
So did Chris Bean. You can see him there at the corner of your screen get spun around. He nearly got hit, but I'm not sure by who. Here we're watching Andrew Ang.
He just missed it. He was a little late on the brakes, Joe. He missed his entry, and then here's the spin for Bean. Kind of the same problem. Missed his entry there a little bit. I think that had a little more to do. I think that had a little bit more to do with the company next to him there.
Yep, Dave Cohen's on board here watching this incident. Yeah, he was looking to the inside, and Bean, I think, maybe was, like you said, put off. So, as they continue on, all drivers were able to get their cars going once again, but Dudignon is leading the way over Olenek still, who was able to hold on to that second place. Dave Price now sits in third. Pawlowski has finally got the track to themselves in fourth. Billy Bob Wright rides in fifth, and pretty much everybody single file at this point.
Ooh, Schlocker being challenged back here by Mick Claridge. Claridge coming through on the exit of the horseshoe. He's got trouble. Car got very unstable.
Yeah, you could see how the power just made that rear end wiggle as he came onto the banking. So he loses a little ground on Schlocker due to that. Stefan holding his own, having started this race in 15th. He's gained a few spots since the drop of the green. You know, now all break. Oh, and Schlocker way too late. Same thing with Mick Claridge, both of them into the grass.
Oh, Mick, what a save by Mick. He almost hit that inside retaining wall. Wow. He was just a passenger, Joe.
Yeah, that had to be scary. So Scott Velez goes by him. So does David Rossi. And actually, Stefan Schlocker now serving his penalty for cutting the course there is going to lose out to Rossi, who now moves up into 12th. All the while up at the top of the field, we saw Dave Price at the fastest lap of the race now. In fact, it is relatively calm up at the front of the field. Those drivers spreading apart since the first lap.
It's good to be at the front, Joe. It's good to be at the front. Dugnan not really opening things up much more than he already has, to be honest with you. Rob Olenek giving really good chase here so far.
Yeah, it seems like those guys have really managed to get themselves their own little piece of track. I can report that Simon Shaw just overtook Kenneth Bately for 16th place farther back. They're just ahead of Coy Visto and Philippe Urquhart, of course. You can see now heading on to the oval portion. Let's see if anybody gets themselves a good run. The slipstream does have quite an effect. This car, relatively aerodynamic, but once you get up to those high speeds, almost 180 miles an hour, of course, the rear end of the car not as aerodynamic, so it cuts a decent hole. Ooh, and Sadro's having problems with Marco Kika.
Yeah, Sadro and Kika. And it's coming into the bus stop. More trouble. Man, they hit hard, too.
Yeah, Kika's that white car that you see just completely outbrakes himself. Now, it looked like it happened really early. I almost wonder if it was a hardware failure of some sort.
Yeah, you know, Joe, boy, for a moment I thought that, too. And then again, maybe he just got caught up with the battle, and you do that, you miss the breaking point, and then we talked about it already. If you're too late here, you're too late, and that's exactly what happened there to Daniel.
Now, Hideki Koivisto just lost a few positions going wide into turn one. That puts him at the back of that train we were watching earlier, behind Urquhart, Bately, and Shaw. In fact, Shaw stretching away from those other three. Meanwhile, it's coming back at him there, as you see Koivisto trying to have a go at Philippe down into the western horseshoe, but it doesn't quite work out. He'll get another stab coming out of turn 6. Now up onto the banking. As the cars wind up and pick up speed, we look from on board. Bately back at these two. Looks like nobody really quite strong enough to be able to go on the attack as they hit the super stretch and then hit the brakes down for the bus stop.
Strong enough or brave enough, Joe? Take your pick.
We're foolish enough.
Yeah,
But
right.
Philippe with a fantastic run off the corner. Look at this. He's going to get to the inside into turn 3. And I think he's got the position. Just look at those cars jostle around up and off the corner. Ooh, and look at that. Kenneth had to get off the power a little bit. That's something we haven't talked about. These cars coming off the banking, they slide up. Oh, and Philippe Urquhart taking an interesting line down into turn 1.
Interesting indeed, Joe. He got awful lucky there.
Yeah, and I'd be surprised if he didn't get a cut course penalty for that. But Kenneth Bately is not able to overtake him.
It doesn't look like he got one. He's still just going on there, so hard to say. You know, the other three car battle is this one with David Rossi and Schlacher with Scott Velez now coming to the party. And
as those guys are fighting, just an update, we don't have to go there because they're not as close as these guys, but Dave Price has been chasing Rob Olenek. So Stefan Schlacher now looking on Rossi after his early mistake. He's got a great run here. He's gaining speed behind him. He's going to look in. He's going to try to brake late, but he can't quite gain the ground, and so slots back into line.
It's a bit of a chess battle right now, Joe. I move my knight, you move your king, then we move it back. Here comes Schlacher running outside.
Is it going to be Bishop takes Rook side by side coming off the corner? Both cars are able to manage it as they come up to the tri-oval. Rossi up to the inside of Schlacher as he goes the long way around, braking deep down into turn 1. Can he hold on to it? Beautiful move going the hard way for the Austrian. That moves him up into the top 10 now. Let's check in on that battle for second place, Olenek and Price. Now, the other thing about this is they have not dropped off of the Frenchman. Michel Dudignon has not been able to do much to shake them.
He has not dispatched these guys yet. That's got to be a concern for him because really it just takes one trip around to get just a sniff of the toe of that car in front of you, and you're back to, back to back, wing to bumper. So, yeah, let's see here if Rob can maybe catch him here after he gets out of the bus stop and get a run here across the or out of 3 and 4 and down the front tri-oval here.
Did they put wings and bumpers on these cars?
Yeah, they haven't, Joe. I said it, and I totally wanted to retract it, but stick with me. It's early here on the West Coast today.
Yeah, it is. So let's actually check in on Gary Teal and Billy Bob Wright. Now, these two are in a nice fight for 5th, but watch out because Mick Claridge is gaining on them. But he might gain even quicker because there goes Gary Teal down to the inside of Billy Bob Wright. And I think he's got this one done using a nice slingshot up into the tri-oval into turn 1. Already that side-by-side action put Mick Claridge another second closer. The number 2 is coming. Through the International Horseshoe. Wright not giving up on Gary Teal. Oh, but a great exit off of that 180-degree hairpin. Puts Teal very safe as now they weave their way past the kink and down into the Western Horseshoe. Claridge gaining time hand over fist, less than a quarter of the lap. And he's cut off another half second on these two.
What a run by Mick, man. He didn't let starting at the pack phase him at all, did he, Joe?
I feel like he's gotten used to it at this point, the way things have been going. I mean, he had this problem at the ring, the final round last season, where he couldn't go to qualifying and had to start from the pit lane. So Mick Claret has had some practice doing this, clearly. In and out of the bus stop. It is now nearly 3 seconds up to Billy Bob Wright, who has not had an answer for Gary Teal, though he's staying on the gearbox of that car. Now he's got a good run. In fact, a very, very good run as he tries to make a move up and around the high side, coming up to the tri-oval. These cars brake incredibly early down into this corner, way earlier than you'd expect. But he's not going to be able to brake late enough is the problem.
Well, nobody's disappointed us yet, Joe. This has been exciting. Billy Bob and Teal having this great battle, but it may be all for naught. Oh, David Cohen, no, he was just getting out of the way. It may all be for naught, because here comes Mick Claret, and I mean, he is on a run right now, charging up to these guys.
And behind them, we've got a great battle going on between Scott Velez, David Rossi, and Stefan Schlacher. They were side by side through turn one, side by side. Oh, and Stefan Schlacher going way off through the kink. Takes out the cones, comes back to the course, and keeps the spot, but not without gaining a little bit of the green stuff on his tires.
Can we have a moment of silence for that family of cones he just destroyed?
Every single one of them taken out.
Strike!
They come on. Yeah. Bowling for cones. Stefan Schlacher inventing a new sport out there in the Lotus 49, but they all spread apart now once they hit the banking. Schlacher in 10th, Rossi 11th, Velez holding down 12th. Oh, and we got to go back to Billy Bob Wright, because he's got to run and he's trying to go the high side, but he has to actually back out of it, as he's not brave enough with the cars bouncing around coming off of NASCAR 4. He gives it another go coming into the tri-oval, though, and as this is happening, it's now 2 seconds between themselves and Mick Claret. I have a feeling when they come back to this point on the track next time by, it's going to be a three-way fight.
Man, it's less than 2 seconds now. Mick really came in hot to turn one. Took the shallow entrance really, really close to those tires that jut out on your left-hand side as you're making that left-hander.
Into the infield they go. Billy Bob Wright, ever since being overtaken by Gary Teal, has not lost out on that position for lack of trying. He's certainly had a few goes here, but just can't seem to make something stick. And now you can see very clearly behind them, that is Mick Claret gaining ground, and they hit the oval one more time, with him being within just barely over a second. I think he's going to get a whiff of that slipstream. Onto the super stretch they go, up towards the bus stop chicane. Billy Bob really getting a good run every single time.
Yeah, his car seems to handle pretty well in the draft. Joe, I think it's the turns right now that are hurting him.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. So now Billy Bob Wright. Oh, this time he's being given the inside as he ducks it just under that yellow line, but he's able to hold on to it. And Mick Claret, watching this with the best view from behind, has now fully caught these two. Finally, Billy Bob Wright is able to catch, and everybody holding their breath as they all make it through turn one.
I believe Mick knows what gear ratio Gary's running there.
At a close inspection. All right, through the infield. Very difficult to pass in these cars through here, so I'm not sure if Mick Claret is going to be able to try it. Oh, he almost gets into him again. And they've got traffic in the form of Robert Reynolds. Bobby pulls off to the side and lets them through.
Duck and cover, buddy, duck and cover.
Now up onto the banking. Let's see what Mick Claret has got underneath him. It's been these two, Billy Bob Wright and Gary Teal, swapping places on the banking, but maybe they can be joined by Mick. He's got a decent run, but Looks like he's going to hold back a little bit. Early braking from Gary Teal. Keep himself from getting into the back of Billy Bob Wright. All the cars trying to get back up to speed now as they climb on the banking. Already looking high is Mick Claridge, but now he ducks down low, maybe trying to get himself a run potentially.
I think he was trying to drive it down off the top of the hill. Exactly, Joe. Yeah. Looking for the best run possible. Here he goes. I think he's going to come up short. Oh, look who moves down just in time to block his run there. Gary Teal. Wow.
Well, I think we figured out where Mick finds his time. It's the second time in a row. He's late on the brakes. He's going to look the high side coming into the International Horseshoe. Can he get this done? Not as much grip around there, but he's still holding on, and it just can't quite pull it off. It was a valiant effort, though.
Yeah, he's done with Gary, man. He really just wants around and wants around now.
Man, and he's uncompromising on the line that he's running. That's the third or fourth time we've seen him nearly get into the back of Teal.
Yeah,
but these guys have raced. Oh, there's another.
Again and again.
These guys have raced together. Sorry to interrupt. So many years in this car, so they know each other. So I think he's aware exactly how Gary drives this car. Now I think he's got him. Car to the inside, down to the bus stop. Way late on the brakes, maybe too late on the brakes. Can he get it wound up in time? 2 for 1. Oh my goodness! Did he mean to do that though? That's the question.
I said he was done with Gary. He was done with both of them, man. This is mine.
I can't be for sure that was intentional. I think maybe he hit the brakes and just went, well, I guess this is happening, and made it work. Watch this one more time from above. This will give you a good idea how astonishing this is from way back. And Wright just had no answer for him.
That is about as shallow an entry as you can make and actually pull it off. Amazing. So close to dropping a wheel off in that grass, which would have, of course, ended in tragedy.
Now, while this was happening, our lead has really cut down. Michel Dudignon, who was a little over a second ahead of Olenek, is now barely half a second. And in fact, they have dropped Dave Price. So this tells me that it's not so much necessarily a mistake by Dudignon, but Olenek picking up his pace. The Camel driver is suddenly found his sea legs in this Lotus 49. They work their way through the bus stop. We're less than 10 laps to go as well. So halfway through this race, boy, what a story that would be if Olenek manages to find what I believe would be his first broadcast win in this car.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if he can pull it off, Joe, he's going to do it on a day where Michel Dudignon has been honestly pretty flawless here. The car has been really steady. He's been good, but this pressure, well, that can be a factor. We'll see. Olenek putting a lot of it on at the moment.
And I just have to say on a personal note, if Olenek can get this win, I have to say I'll be supremely jealous because I drove this car for the first multiple years since it came on iRacing, and it literally took me years to get my first win in this machine. So if he comes in on only his second, maybe third season, I'm trying to remember how many he's been out here, and takes one, then hats off to him. It is no mean feat with the talent that you find in this Lotus 49. He's certainly applying lots of pressure on the Frenchman. Meanwhile, we've had a change for position down in 16th. Hideki Koivisto and Andrew Ang have been swapping back and forth. Ang now taking 16th, or is he? He tries to hold on to the car. He gets it wound up, but he hands the spot back. Immediately hit it to the number 18 of Koivisto. Still sliding around the corner is Andrew Ang through the International Horseshoe, but keeps it together. You can make these tires a little bit angry, I will say.
Oh yeah, boy, those rear tires on this Lotus 49, they are monster tires, huge. But guess what? They do get hot, they do get angry, and if you beat them up, they won't be kind to you.
So as they come onto the banking, Rob Olenek has closed even more on our leader. What was 0.5 of a second, look at it now. It is down to 2 3/10 of a second, wavering back and forth.
I think this is planned for Rob. I don't think he's too excited about passing him now. Not yet, Joe. He's okay if he just rides, follows in the wake, and keeps the car under him. He's going to have an opportunity, obviously, in those last couple of laps to make this move. He's calculating it, figuring it out, measuring him.
7 to go. There you can see up on your screen as we ride on board now with the near infamous Tiger car of Rob Olenek. I know he's pretty happy with that scheme. He's didn't want to give it up when they brought this on to IESN, and drivers talked about doing classic schemes and coordinating on that. He said, no, I want to keep this one because I like it. Right now, he is on the prowl on Michel Dudignon, just stalking him as they slowed up one more time into the bus stop. Let's see if he can get a launch onto the banking here.
I see what you did there. Prowl. I'm with you.
Stalking. He's got his claws out, I'm telling you.
Yeah. His prey is right there in front of him. It's...
and as we watch this, let's just give a quick mention. And Angelica Pawlowski, the number 11, this car typically is not this high up in the field, still running fourth, qualified incredibly well in third. My hat's off to Pawlowski here because Angelica has also found some pace since we last looked at them.
Pawlowski has taken advantage of her great qualifying effort to pull off this kind of run. And listen, it doesn't hurt that you've been good today. You've managed to navigate this track well, and here we go with in the closing laps of this race. Now you find yourself just outside the podium. Probably a little hard to catch that, but if these guys in front get a little bit of trouble, that's all it's going to take for Angelica here to pick this up.
Mick Claridge is gaining on Angelica, but I don't think that top 5 is anything to scoff at as well as we keep our eyes on Rob Olenek climbing the banking once more. Got a little close out of turn 6, but seemed to lost ground. Just didn't get a good exit on the oval portion. It's a lapped car trying to let them through. Dave Cohen just ducks down to the inside, lets him by. Right on board with Dave Price, watching. And that's something we haven't mentioned either, is that if Dudignon and Rob start fighting, that's going to bring Dave into this very, very quickly. So I think even if it is a 2-car fight, even on the last lap, it'll very quickly become a 3-car fight. Meanwhile, we got a little bit of a battle between Bruce Snelson and Richard Morin for 8th place. And Morin trying to set himself up through the chicane, back up onto the banking. And that is a great exit by Richard. I think he's going to have an opportunity once they hit the front stretch. See him start to gain, but just not quite close enough now that they hit the tri-oval here. The thing about these onboards really emphasizes things is you can see that suspension working. These cars made to handle bumps, ironically. Not quite like this, though. Down to 5 to go now. Morin just not able to catch up to Snelson as quickly as I thought. Speaking of catching, though,
Yeah.
I think we need to head to 4th place. Because Mick Claridge is getting very, very close. Oh, but he's got lap traffic. That's Dave Cohen at a very bad spot. He was catching.
Yeah, and Dave's done a good job of getting out of the way, Joe, but I think that happened a little bit too quick there for Dave. I honestly don't think he knew Mick was going to be there at the bus stop when they got together.
Yeah, absolutely. That was just a testament to how late that Mick has been braking during this race. Now we look back up at Olenek, and Dave Price has suddenly caught Rob. Out of the International Horseshoe, Rob hasn't dropped too much from Dudignon, maybe a 10th or 2, but that's to be expected at this course, and especially with these cars and the mistakes that you're able to make so easily in these things. So I don't think anything really is going wrong with the number 5.
I think Rob's patience is really what's made this a bit of a battle behind him. We talked about it here just a few laps ago, Joe. I think Rob's right where he wants to be, although I think he'd probably prefer to have Dave a little bit further back behind him.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit harder to attack when you're also having to defend at the same time. Oh, and I think we've got an accident. We do. Paul Foster has unfortunately botched turn 1. It was a pass attempt on Simon Shaw, gone completely wrong.
Yeah, the Australian driver just gets it in. He almost avoids hitting that Armco barrier. It was a good onboard.
Yeah, and you're going to see that Australian for Foster's unfortunately involves a bit of repairs, as just breaks out from underneath him when he doesn't want it to and can't woe it up in time.
All right, here we go. Pavlovsky being passed now, Joe. Here comes Mick Claridge, and there goes Mick Claridge across the start-finish line.
That moves him into 4th place. Mick Claridge does get it woed up safely down into turn 1. But unfortunately, I think this is where his climb will end. He is now 18 seconds behind the top 3. So unless one of them has an accident up ahead of him, he is going to do no better than 4th today. Down to 3 laps to go. 2.5 really for our top 3. And they're still being led by Michel Dudignon, being chased by Rob Olenek, and the train being held up by Dave Price down there. Let's stay with these 3 to the end of the race, because this is where the action is. Daniel Sadro pulls off on the super stretch, lets them go by. They all woe up for the bus stop.
You know, I've wanted to say it several times, Joe, that Dave's not here, but Dave's very much here and very much a part of this battle. He starts to tail off a little bit, but again, it just takes a sniff of the toe to get back in this here at Daytona.
Absolutely, and I think we're seeing a charging Rob Olenek. He's got a head of steam up into the tri-oval. He looks down low, but he's not anywhere near close enough to outbrake him, or is he? He outbreaks himself. Michel Dudignon going high. They're side by side heading through the chicane. You can't do that flat out, and Dudignon has to give it up, but he comes back on the attack down into the International Horseshoe. Side by side, still they go through the hairpin. Both drivers trying to get on the power, and what a defense and what an attack from the Frenchman. He gets back into the lead.
Rob had been waiting on that mistake. Oh, I don't know, for about 16 laps, and then he couldn't do anything with it. Now Dave Price is here to the party. Watch out.
That is the tenacity of Dudignon. You just can't overtake him like that. Rob slipping and sliding out of turn 6 with Dave Price now on the attack. Rob goes from attack to defense, but Michel Dudignon has got to be wary. He's going to get the white flag, but he can't make mistakes like that again. Into the bus stop. Olenek stays safe for now, but Price, could he be lining himself up to get a launch onto the banking of NASCAR 3 and 4. He is so close behind Rob Olenek, and I think he's going to have the draft here.
White flag at the line here, Joe.
Dave Price gets a run, but he lifts, not willing to do anything with it. They come down to turn one of the few good places to pass around this circuit. Olenek defends down to the inside. Dudignon has a much better run through turn one now. But look at the gaps between them. This is the closest all three have been all race long. Duck to the inside from Dave Price. Ooh, and look at the tire smoke coming from Rob Olenek. He is under threat. He gets a little bit distracted, but no overtake yet, Sean.
Not yet. Joe, this is coming down to the last lap. I'm sorry. It's probably going to happen in NASCAR 3. That's where it's going to start. And then it's probably going to get settled somewhere right before the start-finish line. We may have a photo finish today, Joe. I would not count that out as a possibility here.
Oh, but look at the run onto the banking from Michel Dudignon. He has sussed this out on this Roval. He knows exactly where to get the power down safely, minimize the wheel spin, and he's gapped him to about half a second. They're going to have to really hustle it through this bus stop if they want a chance to try and attack on their way to the line. All three cars sending it through that final chicane. Who's got it? Oh, and that could be a cut course for Rob Olenek. He took it way through hot through there. And Dave Price as well does not get himself a good run. We thought it was going to be a photo finish, but I don't think they've got enough. Michel Dudignon taking it to the Tri-Oval. 2 for 2 here in the first season of 2019. Michel Dudignon wins.
All right. Well, you know what, Joe? It's not over for 7th place. I think Richard Morin here getting a run at Schlacher. This could be a good one coming down the super stretch here to the bus stop.
If I know Stefan, though, he is a fierce competitor. He does not give up a fight if he can help it. And look at who's behind them. Bruce Nelson also gaining speed. But Morin is very, very close to the Austrian. This is for 7th position that they are fighting. Stefan tried to hold the middle of the track to keep him from getting an opportunity. He's got the slipstream. He looks up high, but it's too little too late. Stefan Schlacher is going to solidify 7th.
Boy, not by much. Let's look at the battle for 12th still going on here.
This course is putting on some great action. I hope they return to this track. It's a free course, so it certainly helps with participation. Philippe holding off Simon Shaw. Shaw's got a much better run than what we've seen before. This one going to be a lot closer. Oh, but he touches him. He's very lucky that car did not launch into the air in the Tri-Oval. So it looks like Urquhart is going to take 12th. With that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. Stick around because we're going to have all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. I think we found a new course that should regularly be on the schedule here for the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. But up at the top, it was a regular winner anyways. Michel Dudignan, not a regular podium though. Rob Olenek. I tell you what, this is a guy to watch this season. He finishes second. He could have actually had the win. Just a bad final lap denied him the chance to make it a little bit closer. Dave Price as well taking third. And we've got Mick Claridge in fourth with Billy Bob Wright, another fifth place for him. How about that? Angelica Pawlowski finishing sixth, ran out of fuel on the last lap. We didn't mention it, but that was a little bit of a worry coming in if drivers didn't know about the pace lap. That you had to fuel enough in for that one. Stefan Schlacker gets seventh, a very close battle to the end with Richard Moore in eighth. Bruce Nelson just finished behind them in ninth, and Scott Velez gets a top 10.
Velez with a top 10, and it's David Rossi finishing just outside the top 10 there with Philippe Urquhart there in 12th. Simon Shaw with a 13th place run today. Andrew Eng going to wind up 14th. Hideki Kuivitso picks up for 15th. Gary Teal, 16th place run for him. Kenneth Bately, 17th today in the number 16. Francisco Javier Gutierrez there in 18th today. Robert Reynolds with a 19th place run. David Cohen, 20th, a couple laps down. I'll take the last four here. Paul Foster had that unfortunate incident for him. 21st today. Daniel Sadro, hard luck for Sadro. 22nd, Marco Kika had trouble getting things going and then wound up on his lid. And he'll finish 23rd. 24th, going to go to Chris Bean, Joe. And we've got a few drivers who are ready to talk.
Indeed. The first to talk to us is going to be second place, Rob Olenek. A second place that looked like it was going to be a little bit closer. Rob, I saw you in the chat. You said you just didn't quite perform how you wanted on the last lap.
Yeah, I kind of came in a little too hot in the entry to the bus stop and screwed my exit up. It almost seemed like Michelle didn't even get a great run out of there either. And if I had hit it just right, it would have been perfect.
Now,
I was holding back, but I got to say that in a way that's kind of weird because it's not really true. Like I was racing hard, but I was purposely, like when we went side by side that one time, that was only because Michelle made a little mistake on one and I didn't even want to go by. I just wanted to be hanging right on his tail the whole time. That was the goal all race, and then just pray for a good run out of the bus stop.
Now, I have to ask, because I leave for two races and suddenly you're fighting for wins. Is this just a Daytona thing, or do you feel like you've picked up the pace and you're ready to challenge for P1 at some point?
At most normal tracks, I would say no. I think with the draft, this track is an equalizer. I tend to drive pretty good here. We've raced it, I think, more than any other track in Camel. And the other thing this week, I'd always been shifting down to first, coming out of the tight corners. And I don't know, I read something on the forums this week and decided to just finally try it. And I just never shifted down to first anymore. And the car is just a lot easier to control coming into the corner, and then a lot easier to get the power down coming out. It ends up being faster, even though it feels slower.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I wound up doing the same after a couple seasons in the car myself. Just first gear is not very useful in most places. So one more question then before we go. We talked a lot about this tiger paint. Is this going to be just a thing with you from now on? You've kept it as we've jumped over to IESN, and it seems to become sort of a trademark.
Yeah, I think it wasn't purposely supposed to be that. It was just playing around at first, and I think I've kind of started to like it, and it does stand out. So I think so. I mean, I debated to put it on other cars, but I think I'm just going to keep it in the Lotus. And once the paint rules changed, it was like, well, the thing already passes, so might as well go with it.
Well, it looks fantastic. It makes you recognizable, and I think we love it here in the booth. Congratulations on second.
Thanks a lot, and congrats to the other podium guys, and even Mick coming through the field.
Absolutely. That was Rob Olenek, second place today. And up next, I believe Sean is going to be talking to our other podium finisher, Dave Price.
Dave is here. Dave, you kept hanging on to the rear end of that battle, and boy, it paid off some really good dividends. He even gave you a chance to maybe take Rob there at the end. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, really stressful race that. Quite a tricky track, or a mixture. 90% of the track is pretty straightforward, and then every time you transition from either the oval to the infield or vice versa, it's just so slippery and bumpy. And I got close to Rob a couple of times, but I didn't really feel confident to chuck it in. I didn't want to have an incident late on in the race. So and then on the last lap, I completely messed the bus stop up, so I had no chance to run him down for the line. But really good fun today.
I think all of you were a little bit zealous there on that last lap there at the bus stop. So I think everybody got it wrong. But honestly, I got to ask, was there at the end, was finishing the race, knowing you had a podium in your clutches, was finishing the race just more important, the reason not to go for the pass there?
Yeah, kind of. If I'd had a chance, I'd have gone for it. But I wasn't in a position that late in a race really to make a strong challenge. And it's a long race. You don't want to chuck it away at the end. But no, if this is a chance, I'll always have a go. But I think Rob was either a little bit faster than me or pretty much the same pace. So it was quite difficult unless you made a mistake really to safely make a move. And I did seem to struggle a little bit, or it felt like I was struggling with straight line speed. I don't know what I've done with my setup. I've maybe running a little bit too much toe out. But I didn't seem to be able to hang on to him in the draft in the way that he was able to hang on to Michelle. So, but yeah, good fun. Podium. I'm delighted for Rob. I think that's probably his highest finish in a broadcast race. I might have that wrong, but and of course Michelle is Michelle and just crazy fast all the time.
Yeah, he is. I appreciate you answering my last question for you, because that was it. I wanted to ask you about the real trick about setting up the car for this configuration, but you got to it there for me, and maybe missed it there a little bit on the toe, and certainly that would scuff off some of your top end speed. But Dave, congratulations, man, on a great podium finish day. Anybody you'd like to thank real quick before we let you go?
I thank my wife for putting up with me disappearing on a Saturday afternoon, I suppose. But just thanks to all the guys I race with every week. It's a fantastic series to race in. Love your guys' coverage, and Merry Christmas.
And a Merry Christmas to you too, Dave. And we'll see you next week back on the track.
Yeah, see you then, guys.
All right, Joe. Dave Price.
Yeah, third place finisher here today. And next we've got seventh place finisher. We'll do one with Mick quickly after Stefan. But we want to talk to Steph because he also had a bit of a climb. Steph, let's talk about the start of the race. It seemed like the bus stop and you are not friends today.
No, I was either I was outbraking myself or slightly locking up the brakes, so I just slid over it. Just keep it safe and avoid everyone else is the motto then. And I was able to do that, and thank God I did.
Yeah, then from there, you kind of had to come back a little bit. Of course, the 2 slowdown penalties you had, making life a little bit hard, but you recovered to 7th. That's no mean feat, having qualified 15th.
Yeah, I was already saying goodbye to my iRacing when I saw that I was number 8, and then qualifying 15th. I was, that's goodbye iRacing. It was nice to know you. And then I don't know what that race was. I'm sorry, but no, I don't know where I came from. I want to have that in Camel too, but I don't know if I can do that.
All right. Well, we want to get a quick one in with Mick here. Nice job on this race, and also thank you for the lap guide on this one. I know it's not easy to get in this car.
No, it's not easy at all.
All right, that was Stefan Schlacker, 7th place finisher. Sean's going to talk to 4th place Mick Claridge, who climbed from 20th on the grid.
Mick, man, Mick the Quick. That's what Joe just called you here a moment ago. Man, why put yourself through so much trouble by starting at the back of the grid there? Talk to us.
Can you hear me all right, first of all?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yeah, no, it was. I was having troubles with the wheel 2 minutes before the race went. So I had the had the join race screen come up, and I just thought, I'm going to have to restart the PC. So that's what I did. Luckily, I just got in time before the start, because I would have hated to have missed the start. But yeah, I knew I'd missed qualifying there. But no, it was good fun though.
It really, really was good fun watching you charge up through the field. Talk to us about some of those passes, though. I mean, the car obviously here is about as far on the limit as you could be at any track. What's it like from the driver's seat?
That's pretty tough, to be honest with you. There's not much grip, so the rear's all over the place, and it's so easy to mess up, coming out the bus stop. I messed up going into the bus stop because my pedals weren't calibrated. I've got that problem where you have to really floor the brake to get it to calibrate, once you join up. So that's why I lost it in the bus stop. But yeah, I was just talking to Gary and Billy Bob. Gary was saying, that pass you made on us into the bus stop was pretty embarrassing. And I said to him, I didn't actually mean to overtake both of you. I meant to just overtake one of you and let Billy Bob through and try and get him on the front straight. But he let up there, so it wasn't me being brilliant. It was him letting off and letting me through there.
Well, Mick, congratulations on another great run. And before we let you go here, as we're starting to run out of time, I got to ask you one final question. Would you like any fries with your burger today, sir?
Nah.
It's okay. You're not supposed to get that. It's okay.
All right, yeah, I like extra fries. Yeah, I'm going to have some fries later on today.
All right, buddy. Hey, we'll see you next week. Have a great Christmas, Mick. And hopefully Santa's got a new metronome or maybe some drumsticks for you. We'll see.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
See you later, Mick.
That was Mick Claridge, fourth place today. I guess a little behind the curtain. We were teasing Mick behind the scenes with his mic quality a little bit there. Sounded something like a drive-through microphone for a second.
Yeah,
we'll have to get him a new one for Christmas.
Rift is going to have to work on those mics, man. I'm sorry.
All right, we're going to head out here today. And of course, a big thank you to the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back, and also for iRacing for putting us onto the iRacing Esports Network. If you enjoyed this, once again, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network, because they have lots of great racing action, lots of official racing such as this. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde to provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Sean, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Make sure and subscribe to GSRC's YouTube. There's a big red button for that as well. You won't miss a moment on the GSRC. The next race that we've got coming up on IESN is, of course, the VNI race. Batteries not included, coming up in just a moment. And, of course, the next race here for Lotus 49 is Le Mans. They're going to be racing on that historic version, so it's going to be a long run down the Mulsanne Straight there. That'll be Saturday, December 29th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We have other upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.